Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with the start of a new Tomb Kings campaign as the High Queen Khalida. So, I have no idea how the Tomb Kings work. I've seen a handful of gameplay footage, of course, from before, from other YouTubers, but nonetheless I'm not entirely sure how they work. Obviously, a lot of their units do not actually have any upkeep associated with them. And actually, they can recruit a lot of things for free, as you can see here. But so I'm not entirely sure how much, or if you even have to pay for the majority of the units. And we're kind of going to be looking at that right now. You can't see it does appear. There's no associated cost given with Tomb Guard, or looks like a lot of these units are most likely a lot, if not all of these units are. Fairly easy to field, so definitely they're going to be limited, obviously, by what in what you can build by your settlement account and all that sort of stuff. But it does look like you can basically just, and of course you can't just churn out armies on endlessly. But it does look like your upkeep is not really going to be much of an issue. Mostly the reason you're going to need economy is just to build new buildings. So that's pretty cool. So obviously here we do have our starting army with High Queen and Khalida. She's a decent melee combatant, which is the main reason I chose her. I figured that it would be best to start with a bit of a forgiving lord. And I was interested in trying out the Necropolis Knights and Sepulchral Stalkers in sort of proper matchup, or against AI. So here we go, and we're up against. At first, we're up against the Silver Host. I don't recall if they always had Rosetta under their control, but nonetheless, our first mission is to eradicate them. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to shift north with good old Queen Khalida, and we're going to start recruiting troops. Now I think the archers are not a bad idea, and we'll kind of stiffen things up with some skeleton spears. Obviously we're not expecting them to do very much damage, but just good to field those units. We can level up our barracks, which as you can see is actually very expensive. 4,000 for tier 2 I think is generally, you'll see about 3,000. You'll see definitely usually the upgrade is a little cheaper. So we could level up the crypt barracks. Instead though, we could also invest and perhaps Avenue of Monuments, or Mortuary House, or perhaps an obelisk. I think what we will do, I'm definitely a little on the fence on what we should do, because I'm not, as I mentioned before, I'm not entirely sure what we should do. So I think what we'll do is we'll actually go into the Bone Shaper here, try to get ourselves a chariot, which I think would be cool, and we will level up the crypt barracks. Why not? And then we'll look into tech, and I'm not entirely sure what each of these does. So you can improve your hero capacity. We can get, so you can get your dynastic sort of lords here. Actually, that's one of the things I would want to check out, is how exactly recruiting lords and heroes work. So obviously we can't recruit anything there because we don't have any of them unlocked, but we could. So right now we're maxed out on Tomb King lords, and to get more, we will need to unlock them through the dynasties panel. Or the Dynasties panel, which is right here, and that's our technology. And as you can see, you're definitely limited in armies, but it shouldn't be too much of a problem, I don't think, to level those up. So we can choose kind of what we want to go into. You can see here there's one that's oriented, so it looks like these are mostly just oriented at getting additional, up here you can just get additional Tomb Princes, Necrotechs, Lich Priests, though what you have to pay for each is a little different. In some cases it's gold, in some cases it's less gold, and all that sort of stuff. Down here is actual technology. You can see that's going to vary a bit. Nahkarn Warriors and Chariot upgrades, more Nahkarn Warrior buffs. So definitely there we can see Nahkarn Warrior. Here's the Skeleton Horseman oriented unit upgrades. Here's Carrion orient. Oh, and here's just general kind of monster oriented upgrades. Pride and Service, Tomb Guard and Hero Titan oriented upgrades, which I'm not entirely sure I really want, because the Tomb Guard, the thing is that as far as I've been able to tell, the infantry available for Tomb Kings are very, very lackluster, I think would be the correct term to use. Necropolis Knights, this could be pretty cool. Obviously getting access to Necropolis Knights could be a little tough. Clothed in the Divine, and here we can see the Heralds Empowered, which I'm not entirely sure what that is. But there's a whole bunch of upgrades here that we could get. Regardless, there's some upgrades for Shopti and War Sphinx. So there's definitely quite a few different available options. So I think we'll actually try the Wisdom of the 6th Dynasty, just because I would like to get some upgrades for the Ushapti, because I think they're pretty cool. Not too hyped on the Cameroon War Sphinx, but definitely would like to see some upgrades for their shop, because I think their shop are going to be a very sort of a core unit in our compositions, and one that's relatively easy to access. So this is obviously Mortal Empire's campaign. Right now we're not really able to negotiate or even see anybody, but nonetheless what we are going to do is we're going to end turn here and just kind of see what happens. Obviously we do want to run through at a faster speed, because sitting and waiting for turns to complete is not going to be fun. That would be a major nuisance. And yeah, so we'll just kind of run through as quickly as we can. And yeah, see, hopefully, I'm not entirely sure how or where the Silver Host spawns its army. It could be anywhere. It's definitely going to be a little hard to defend, because we aren't starting in a major settlement, so we don't get walls right off the bat. And of course, we don't have the best of sieging armies, because we are reliant on cavalry, and obviously cavalry is not particularly great at sieging. Now, interestingly enough, there's a whole bunch of random armies. So we do have the Book of Nagash as well, which we have not collected. And for that we need to complete various quests here. So we need to, there's various areas we have to conquer. Castle Drakenhof. We need to, in some cases, we need to defeat certain lords. Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to be done. You can see here we do have the Lost Plateau, so that one's fairly accessible. And yeah, so there's a whole bunch of stuff to do. So we'll see how. I don't know if those armies are wandering, or if that's just kind of like an objective defending army or something like that. I'm not entirely sure how that works. So yeah, I'm kind of clueless. But we will swing north and go. Most likely attack Lamia immediately. Lamia does not have a particularly great garrison. Skeleton spears, some zombies, units like that, which are fairly pitiful, especially against our pretty potent force. Now, one of the interesting things, I did open up some campaigns of some of the other Vampire Count Lords, and one of the things I know, or not the Vampire Count Lords, some of the other Tomb King Lords, and one of the things that I noticed was that a lot of the other lords do start with a free hero. In most cases, it was a Lich Priest with, or as far as I saw in the, I didn't check out Cetra, but I did check out both Arkan the Black as well as Katep, just because I wanted to see where their starts are, where their spawns are, and Mortal Empires. And I was surprised that they both start with a Lich Priest. Now, to be fair, I'm not entirely sure how useful that is, as most of them are already casters to begin with, so they don't exactly need access to that sort of stuff. But nonetheless, it was cool to see. We are going to get 2 units of chariots. Unfortunately, the chariots, once again, not a great siege unit. But against vampire counts who don't have the best units to begin with, and I think that's one of the important things to keep in mind. It's just that vampire counts are not a particularly great faction in early game, especially not under AI control, which AI tends to misuse Invocations of Nag, for example, which is really kind of a staple of good vampire count usage. And obviously, if we fight each other, we won't have any fear or terror issues either way, or neither one of us is really going to have fear or terror. Now, actually, this is a really powerful army, definitely more powerful than I anticipated, and that could be a little bit of a problem. That's a lot of poison, but we do have a good amount of armor. These guys will definitely shred through our skeleton warriors with relative ease. But I think we could give it. I'm tempted to give it a shot. I don't know how High Queen Khalida, what she has exactly. She does have the Curse, which is that AoE damage. She does have a Venom Wave, so honestly, I think we might be able. It's gonna be rough, but I think we could do it. That's how many of them are. There's 6. So the AI does have 9 units of Crypt Ghouls, so we will give it a shot. We will try to fight this battle out. We obviously do get those healing waves. The enemy will get the Invocation of Nehek in their turn, but we do have some serious heavy cavalry. We do definitely have some serious punching power, and we could potentially make use of that to just beat these guys down. If we can shoot them down with the skeleton archers, hold our line with our normal skeleton units. The biggest problem is, of course, the Crypt Ghouls will most likely be able to hit those skeleton units very reliably. But we also should be able to get those free or shop. I honestly don't care if I lose any of my skeleton spears or skeleton warriors. They're terrible units, and they're free to replace. So if I lose them, it's not the end of the world. And obviously, as they die, our charge for Shopti will come up, and Shopti should be able to shred through Crypt Ghouls really effectively. That's one of those things that really Crypt Ghouls don't have good armor piercing at all. They're comparable to, say, Dryads as far as their armor piercing values go, and it makes them really rather lackluster against heavily armored troops. And so I do have a handful of heavy armor infantry. I definitely didn't anticipate this many crypt ghouls being out this early, but honestly I think I should be okay. So I didn't realize the Sepulchral Stalkers actually have vanguards, which is pretty cool. These guys are, of course, dedicated to anti-large, but they do have decent melee attack. We, of course, do have poison on all our troops as well, which is going to be pretty awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to deploy our archers in the back. We'll mix and match our troops here in the front. It doesn't really matter. These guys are not there to do damage. They're just there to hold. And do their best. Kind of sounds silly, but that is essentially what they just got to do. They just got to hold. Believe it or not, I actually don't really want the spears to be defending the flanks. My opponent doesn't have any heavy cavalry. But he does have... My opponent does not have any, or the AI doesn't have any heavy cavalry, but they do have dire wolves, and actually they are rather potent against spears. Because they're small targets. So obviously you can see the Fellbats there. We could probably we do have the access to Necropolis Knights. Now Necropolis Knights are a very small unit, which is a little unfortunate. But on the bright side, Necropolis Knights are reasonably well armored, and they've got poison. They've got pretty good melee stats all over. And we'll just kind of poke around, be a nuisance, try to do as much as we can. I'm not entirely sure if these guys can fire on the move. I don't think they can. As you can see, we could actually shoot at the Fellbats. I kind of want to see what happens if we
Hi, Queen Khalida.
As you can see, we have caught the dire wolves with our cavalry, and now what we will try to do is we'll try to get our Sepulchral Stalkers out of dodge, because we simply do not want them engaging on the crypt ghouls. We will get our little charge. We will get as much of a charge bonus here as we can on our AI opponent. As you can see here, we are shredding through the dire wolves rather quickly, but obviously we do not want our Necropolis Knights getting tied down by those crypt ghouls, if at all possible. So we've already done reasonably well, and as you can see, we can now rotate, try to pivot, and you can see the Sepulchral Stalkers there are doing some damage with those, whatever they are. I'm not entirely sure what those are supposed to be, but we're just going to push straight into melee and try to support our good old knights. You can see the front line fight is definitely not going too hot. We're going to try to split up our archers so they're not on top of each other, because that does cause them to function somewhat more poorly. Now we look at this Venom Wave. I'm not entirely sure how much damage that does. It does seem to do a little bit at least. And you can see we are definitely whittling down those crypt ghouls. So at the same time, our Necropolis Knights are definitely taking a major beating. We should get one of our healing waves up fairly soon. We're currently sitting at 103 deaths of the required 112. We are trying to disentangle our Necropolis Knights. You can see we're definitely getting a little bit of work done here, and you can see our first healing wave has procced, and that should definitely help us out a good amount. In the meantime, High Queen Khalida is in the fray there. You can see, unfortunately, our Sepulchral Stalkers are definitely having a bit of a rough time of it, and so we will swing to the flank and kind of try to apply some pressure there. Unfortunately, High Queen Khalida, of course, does not have any casting. I don't have any monstrous infantry units in here, which could definitely be a little bit of a problem. We're going to collapse on them over there. And yeah, I think we're doing somewhat okay. I'm not entirely sure this is ideal. You can see the crypt ghouls are shredding through us rather quickly, and you can see definitely we've already got our second charge proc there, and we're well on our way to the third Realm of Souls tier. But we're doing okay. Some of these units are definitely tanking rather quickly, and if we were able to shift, we can then start raining death and destruction on these crypt ghouls. You can see we did lose a unit there, but it's not the end of the world, and that does allow us to summon a unit of Ushapti. And we will summon them right over on the flank there, and that should definitely help us a bit. In the meantime, you can see definitely where knights are getting wrecked, but it's okay. We're going to push the Ushapti into the back of the enemy. Our Sepulchral Stalkers will go over there onto the flank just to stall and buy us some time. High Queen Khalida's in the middle of things, getting surrounded by some zombies and some nasty crypt ghouls, but we will get a little bit of a knockback there. The Ushapti are in the fray, chopping through those crypt ghouls rather effectively, actually. and we'll get our Necropolis Knights clear. You can see our Sepulchral Stalkers doing an okay job over there. And what we really need to do is we need to focus out these Crypticals as quick as we can, because they're really the main threat right now. The Ushabti, as you can see, are basically just helping stabilize this line, dealing with those Crypticals with brutal, contemptuous ease, really. Doing pretty good. You can see we obviously don't want our... If we can, we'd like to not lose our Necropolis Knights. You can see over here the Ushabti doing a great job with their bonus against infantry. And though we might lose it, for example, our spears, it's not the end of the world if that happens. One of the benefits, of course, is that we do have poison of our own, which is helping us a good amount here. You can see, unfortunately, though, you can see an invocation of an act does go down. We're going to have to cycle charge because we don't want to lose any of these units if we can, or at least not our high-end units. We'll send High Queen Khalida into the fray, just try to fight Count Ewald over there. And you can see the Ushabti over here doing some major work. The US guys are disintegrating. And of course, I don't have any healing to bring these guys back if they start collapsing. But you can see my Skeleton Spears are dying, which is definitely a little bit of a problem. Sepulchral Stalker's doing okay. The Ushabti doing some good work. And of course, once these Crypticals are gone, the AI is definitely going to be in a little bit of a pickle. And we still have a good amount of shooting of ammunition left. And as you can see, the AI's army is now crumbling, and we will actually be able to pull this one through. Now, granted, we took some grievous losses, but not any of our major or important units. I'm kind of interested to see. I wanted to test out the Poison Nova against Lord, but we didn't get around to it, really. That's okay. So we got some achievement there, Family Feud. I'm not entirely sure what that one implies. So, obviously, one cannot expect Skeleton Warriors to do well again in this sort of situation. Crypticals are head and shoulders above Skeleton Warriors, and it's the case even with obviously it's the case with the Vampire counts. Skeleton Warriors will get trashed by Crypticals. It's the same case here, but honestly, with those archers, the archers turned out to be very powerful. Their damage per shot is not really any better than, say, Ungor Raiders, but I do believe it's 10 and 1, so just like Goblins and Ungor Raiders, they have the same bow damage, but they do have a somewhat better range at 140. Obviously, with Queen Khalida, they have a little more ammo. It's 20% boost to ammo. They're doing poison damage, so they're constantly weakening their opponents that way, and they're just able to sustain fire on units that are really pretty susceptible to that sort of shooting. The cavalry proved to be rather squishy. The problem is that 90 armor, while definitely pretty good, is not top tier. It's not top notch. It's not amazing. Generally, you want over 100 armor if you really want to be in the top tier of armored units, which puts you in the same class as, say, some of the higher end dwarf units, like Iron Breakers, obviously, or some of the units like the the Fimir or the Demigryph Knights, or Empire Cavalry in general. All of them have 100 plus armor. Blood Knights, Black Knights, the High Elf, Dragon Princes, units like that. So that's really where you want. If you want a unit that generally, if you're looking at around 80 to 90 armor, that's good armor for sure, but it's nothing stellar. It's definitely not enough to kind of stave off, even because it does mean that 10% of the non-AP damage is still always going to be going through at least, and it might be more. So you're never going to get those 100% damage blocks. And unfortunately, for some reason, the loading is being a little slow here. I'm not entirely sure why that is, but definitely if you do the math, the 90 armor is definitely not quite as good. And you see this with greatswords as well. They still get kind of beaten up a bit. Now, so we can look at what we got here. We can get somehow you can harvest organs on an undead unit. Endless March, which gives us money and movement speed or movement range. Bind Souls is definitely tempting. Canopic Jars, that looks pretty tempting, but I think what we'll do is we'll Bind Souls because I really want to get that replenishment. I'm not entirely sure how my replenishment in my own territory here is doing. And we should get some reinforcements. And then from there we can hopefully push straight on to Lamia. And Lamia doesn't have a particularly great garrison, so although I will obviously be forced to siege it down, you can see we do get two of those chariots. I'm not entirely sure how good those are, but we should be able to finish these guys off with an easy auto resolve. And I think what we'll do this time around, because we didn't take many losses there, is that we're actually harvest organs just to get some of those canopic jars. I'm not entirely sure how much you need to make canopic jars like really good, but we'll see. So for Queen Khalida, I wasn't sure what she gets. She only has one unique item, which kind of is a little unfortunate, and it's not a particularly great item to boot. A little boost to damage, magic attacks, shrapnel. Honestly, I would be if I got a weapon like a Tormentor Sword, I would probably take it over the Venom Staff. Um, assuming I do believe this is a weapon that she gets. This is rather, I would not say this is a particularly unique item. As far as the other units, obviously I do want to get her on top of her Necro Serpent as soon as I can. Returned in Madness is pretty cool. Ancient Tyrant, not bad. The extra money from sacking is always good. Embalmed in Elixir, once again, not the greatest. I think a lot of these are not particularly great items. Like Fire Resistance is not that useful on a unit that isn't really vulnerable to like fire to begin with, and hit points plus 4%. That's nice, but it's nothing stellar. We can get the Legion of the Asp Goddess, which is pretty cool. Melee defense and melee attack plus 5 for Sepulchral Stalkers and Necropolis Knights. That's pretty cool in my opinion. The bottoming of Asaph there. Warrior Queen, Frenzy, definitely good. Better Skeleton Archers, it's decent, especially because this affects all armies faction wide. Attrition, that's okay, not entirely sure. And if it's maxed out, you actually get regen, so I think that's actually worthwhile. And so that might be why it's worthwhile getting to Embalmed in Elixir, just to undo the fire weakness from regen, which is now worse than before. It used to be minus 20% fire resistance, now it's minus 25%. But yeah, definitely looking through, kind of just seeing what items we've got. I'm going to take Root Marcher because that is always my default starting choice, our first item, and we're actually going to go Besiege Lamia. And now we can't quite storm it on the first turn, so we're going to have to build, because we don't have a siege attacker ability. So what we're going to do is we're going to start sieging, and we'll take it in the following turn. And in the meantime, I suppose that's it. We can't really negotiate with anybody. We have unlocked a few factions, but none of them are factions we can trade with, and I don't really care to get peace negotiations with orcs or non-aggression pacts with orcs. So we're going to besiege Lamia. Ideally, the AI will sally out and fight us. That would be really perfect, because it would make life very, very easy for us. A lot easier than it already would be. I'm not entirely sure if there are neutral or, well, non-aligned Tomb King factions. Definitely kind of watching the turn counter roll through right now. He's going to ask for peace, but we're not going to give him peace. He doesn't deserve peace. Money, that's a lot of money, but we don't really need that much money. But watching the Tomb Counter, I just want to see how many, or if there are neutral Tomb King factions. There are quite a few. There's like 3 or 4 there, as far as I could tell. And yeah, so good stuff. And now we will have to fight this battle. And this is not a particularly strong garrison. In fact, it's a pretty pitiful garrison. Sitting at 4 spearmen, 2 zombies, and 2 bats. This is a garrison that could be destroyed with probably just my archers and Queen Khalida. I don't really need to focus too much on. This should definitely be a very vulnerable garrison. And once I take control of Lamia, I'll be in a much better spot to from then on roll through the rest of the Silver Host's territories. Obviously, I don't have a lot of melee here. The melee I do have, the chariots I do believe only have 50 armor. So against skeleton spears, despite the fact that skeleton spears are not particularly great melee stat-wise, if I get bogged down, the chariots will die rather quickly. Similarly, I don't think, given how fast they went down to crypt ghouls in the last game, I'm not entirely convinced the knights, the sepulchral stalkers, or the knights would do that great either. As I mentioned in normal quick match videos, the Necropolis Knights are actually not able. I'm not entirely sure why my Skeleton Chariots took attrition. I don't recall anything that should induce that, but they did. We will drop the siege equipment. I don't really see much of a reason to have it. I'm going to Vanguard deploy the Camarine Stalker Squad, or the Sepulchral Stalkers as close as I can. I'll have all our cavalry on this one end here. And we'll just have our archers there, and them there, and we will go. Now you can see the AI has fortified up here. You can see there's spears and whatever down up there. Unfortunately, these guys are being rather silly, and they're standing still. So we gotta put them into melee mode and have them push in. We're going to take some hurt on the spearmen. You can see we're already losing a handful of units, current deaths too, but that's not the end of the world there. And if we can get our archers into position, they do have 140 range, which is pretty decent, and they should be able to sort of whittle down enemy troops with some, maybe not ease, but they reasonably well. We can push up to here, and then we can start working on these skeleton spears. As you can see, the gatehouse is already going down. We'll throw our infantry up the wall, and we will focus their skeleton spears with our archers. You can see the bats are in the back. Over here, the cavalry is working on the defenses there. Obviously, you can see the gate is actually going down rather quickly. The sepulchral stalkers seem to be doing quite a bit of work, and High Queen Khalida, of course, is helping out there. Obviously, with no invocation of the heck, and that's one of the things I actually did not like about the way the vampire heroes were implemented. And that's not true. And obviously, we're not dealing with any heroes here because this is a tier 2 garrison. But even in tier 3 garrisons, the hero you get is a vampire hero. And while that might seem good because it's a combat hero, I actually think, because you don't get lore vampires, I actually think it's weaker than if you, for example, received. And you can see we're going to disrupt the formation just to break them up there, and then push through with skeletons, warriors, and the sepulchral stalkers. And yeah, we're doing pretty good. Gonna get a little bit of poison attack there, or explosion there. Obviously, it's not, the effect of it is not that useful here, and it does apply poison, but that's fairly useless when that's just a feature of our army. So all our units are, I'm causing poison with every one of my units right now. Over here, you can see my skeletons are climbing the wall, and they will out-trade zombies very decisively. We're still working on that gate, but between the sepulchral stalkers and Queen Khalida, we should be able to just shred through these ground defenses and get moving. Over here, you can see the zombies moving to try to block my skeleton wars. You can see we're actually nowhere near reaching our Realm of Souls cap. Only having taken 47 losses, none of those on an important unit. You can see the skeleton spears there disintegrating. The bats, the AI is still somewhat bad with sieges and doesn't commit. Like the bats, there's no real reason the AI should be keeping him back there, but it does. One of the interesting things about sepulchral stalkers is that they don't actually have good charge bonus, despite being one of those large sort of like troll-esque units. Although obviously anti-large, they're actually holding. They're actually not. They don't have a good charge bonus. The charge bonus is only 10, I do believe, and it's a little unfortunate. You can see those spears are going to go down, and we were going to be able to push through into the enemy line, into the enemy backline. We're going to be able to go straight for the cap. We're not even going to bother kind of fighting anywhere else. We could go here and try to open up the way for our troops, but we won't really bother with that. Over here, you can see the zombies do fall apart, and we are going to be able to push through and just head straight for the cap. Our archers did take some damage, and unfortunately they didn't really take. We haven't taken enough damage to pop one of those replenishments, which would be awesome. I do believe there should be. I think this is it for my opponent's troop, for the AI's troops. I always say it's my opponent. I'm too used to playing multiplayer. Obviously, this isn't much of an opponent, the AI, because the AI is somewhat not smart, but it's force of habit. We do. Their explosion is not that powerful against. It's not that powerful against units like this, against units like fell bats. We'll try to get our archers on point because I think our archers are actually a much better shutdown against bats than anything else we got on the field. We still haven't managed to breach the gate over here. Still working on it. Sepulchral stalkers are definitely taking some damage. You can see they are going to be able to kill some of the bats here and there, but definitely it's not cost efficient. Obviously bats are very good at shutting down large units. And just tying, or anti-large units, and just tying them down and wasting their time. You can see Queen Khalida here. Who's not anti-large. She just good all-around stats. It's also taking a while to chew through them. And finally, you can see the bats are sort of disintegrating and dying. Hopefully, this gate will be down soon. We can push through with the cav there too. The fell bat's almost gone. 30 models, and we actually haven't lost the sepulchral stalker, which is definitely good. We managed to breach the gates there. The AI hasn't pulled the spearmen off, and we're just going to go straight for the cap. I'm too lazy to chase after units on walls. If they decide to climb down and contest, sure, we'll defend, but or we'll deal with them then. But not going to do anything until then. You can see those fell bats falling apart, and they've actually done a number on Khalida, for sure. You can see the Felbats here are definitely not having the best time of it. But they are, with that 44 melee defense, they're actually good even against skeleton. Skeleton spears, or skeleton warriors, sorry, who are technically supposed to be better against small units. Now here you can see we've got some skeleton spears climbing around, flanking us. I guess we could engage them. Doesn't really matter. There's a lot of them, but they have terrible stats. Our archers, while definitely not good in melee by any means, just have poison, so they're going to debuff these guys when they do charge in. And we'll be able to just get a flank going and shoot them up, pincer them. We could probably actually roll over these guys. We do have 2 units of chariots and those knights, so provided that our charge doesn't get too badly disrupted here, we should be able to just pull through. You can see that was actually a pretty brutal charge. It took about half their HP off and they just start disintegrating. So yeah, that's going to be game. And pretty easy win, in spite of the fact that our army is definitely not optimal for sieging. It's actually a pretty bad sieging army. And yeah, definitely the low armor on the majority of the Tomb King units is definitely catching me by surprise. I kind of expected the infantry not to be too well armored. The fact that they're at 10 is really low, and the Tomb Guard's only at 50. That's definitely lower than I expected. The cavalry I'm definitely a bit shocked by. I wasn't expecting 90 armor. I was expecting somewhere around 100. Obviously not demigryph levels, because demigryphs are just legendary for their armor at 125. But I was expecting something in the over the 100 vicinity. So nonetheless, definitely pretty fun with Queen Khalida. We have kind of wiped out the Lamian capital here, the Silverhost's capital, and from there we're going to be able to really start expanding into the rest of their territory, and from there we should really be, I would say, pretty set for the. Once we clear out the Silver Host, we should basically be set for the rest of the game. I can't imagine that with 2 provinces. Generally, you can function from there. We'll have to wipe out obviously the Lizard Men and Krokgar, who are occupying the southeast corner. But with that gone, it should be pretty solid. I think we'll be pretty well off. I really don't understand these load times. The load times are, for some ungodly reason, they're being really slow and prolonged, and I'm not entirely sure why that is, but it's definitely a little annoying. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, it's just taking a while. One of those little annoying things, and I'm not entirely sure why. I might just have to start cutting the loading times, or see if I need to check anything in any background processes or anything like that for what's lagging me out. So now what we're going to do is, rather than, of course, we could occupy it, but what we're going to do instead, we're just going to sack it for money. I'm not entirely sure that's the smartest idea, but at the moment it doesn't really matter, and we can then immediately occupy Lamia and be set. Obviously, we don't need two buildings, and it's actually best to just keep it. Now, obviously, it does improve your capacity, so perhaps it's not a bad idea just to get extra archer capacity, but it's definitely not crucial. We could get a gemstone mine, but once again, this only is really going to help you if you were trying to trade, and right now we're not really able to trade with anybody. I think what we'll do is we will invest in a obelisk, because I think public order is important, and we'll level up Queen Khalida a little bit. We could get Soul Reaper, which should help casualty replenishment, and I think that's actually a very good idea. We could improve our canopic jar generation, but personally I think what we're going to do is we're going to invest in Soul Reaper, just to get that casualty replenishment maxed out, much like the Wood Elves, and then we'll go into Canopic Jar Hoarder to get these 2 items, just for the strategic benefit, and then from there we'll see. There's a whole bunch of stuff to get. And yeah, I don't think we can't actually get anything. We could get 2 Nehakaran warriors, and so I think we'll recruit those, and then we'll get a replacement skeleton spear, because those could be a little useful. And yeah, we'll continue on the. I suppose we'll continue with that on the next turn. So, kind of Let's see. I'll have to rebuild Lamy a whole bunch because I did just sack it, which is gonna be a little unfortunate. We do obviously we do want to wipe. Well, hopefully we'll wipe out the. Oh baby, let's see. Angry dwarves. Actually, not angry. We got non-aggression pact's not bad. I'll take that because right now I don't really want to fight the characters. Well, guys, I'm not entirely sure how their territory is for me. If it's actually bad for me, or if it's good. If I recall, the territory that's favorable, there is a certain territory that gives you a unique building for the in the Badlands for the if you're playing as the Tomb Kings, but I think it might just be for Ark in the Black. It might not actually be for not actually be for the Vampire Counts here. So we have a whole bunch of fancy abilities here. We can get a Lich Priest, Necrotect, just a boatload of money. Given that we have a really bad income, the boatload of money actually isn't a bad idea. But what I think we're going to do is we're going to call upon a Lich Priest because, well, unfortunately he's Lord of Light, which is not what I was hoping for. I'd been hoping because Lord of Light has been nerfed a little bit, actually pretty decent amount, I think. So before, Lore of Light offered really powerful net spell, and now Net of Mintox actually taking a significant nerf. For those of you who are not aware, it's significantly worse now. If we open it, or it should be. So as you can see, you simply target an enemy and it freezes them in place. So it's effectively a 20-second. Prey of Anathrema. Granted, it's a lot cheaper than it used to be. And then if you overcast it, it's an AoE with 30-meter AoE, 20 seconds freeze. So definitely not comparable to what it used to be, where you could simply lock an enemy in place for a good 30-plus seconds with the baseline AoE. So definitely not that anymore. So I think, well, certainly there was some compensation made. I definitely don't think Lore of Light is as good as it used to be. So we're going to have to take Marak as quick as we can. Chances are our opponents are in the far south. I'm not entirely sure how the garrisons are for the Tomb Kings. I didn't bother checking that out, and that could definitely be a bit of a mistake on my part. I'm not entirely sure if we'll be able to sack and then occupy Marak. It might be impossible. And obviously we're not making a lot of money, so that's definitely a bit of a problem. We definitely need to get some economic buildings up and running. If not in Lamia, then down here in our starting city. And yeah, definitely going to be... Definitely got to try to get our economy underway, at least to some extent. Obviously, you don't necessarily need as much economy for the Tomb Kings because all your units are free. But still, definitely some money is some money's needed. We can just barely reach it, which is a little unfortunate. So what I think we're gonna have to do is we're gonna move her over there. Well, we're get the priest in there, just so that he can get some XP when we hit Marak, and then we hit Marak, and it's just an easy auto resolve. And we're able to occupy, and we're just gonna occupy it. And we do get a handful of canopic jars. Not entirely sure how much, and we've unlocked some sort of. I'm not sure how much. So it looks like you need a lot of just to get the Flock of Jaff, which is the cheapest as far as I can tell. Canopic jar unit to buy, you need 100 jars, so we're not actually close to that. For weapons, we can actually. Oh, so that's interesting. So the gems, you actually need the gems to craft certain items. That's pretty cool. Granted, these items don't look particularly good for most part. This looks really cool. Crook and Flail of Radiance. Plus Bound Spell Banishment, and those melee attack buffs are pretty awesome. The rest of it here, not the greatest. You can see this one can't actually be crafted more than once, though. There's also armor, which is pretty cool, including one that grants huge damage resistance. 22% is definitely pretty significant. Van Race to the Sun. So there's definitely some fancy items. And honestly, given how pitiful the staff is for High Queen Khalida, it's kind of tempting to just get those items instead of investing in or to just get those sorts of items on her instead of using her Venom Staff. The Venom Staff is just so lackluster. We can also pick something here. We could do movement range. We could do public order, which might be a good idea. Unit experience, which would be okay, and casualty replenishment rate, but we don't really need that right now. So what I think we're going to do is I think we're going to do public order and untainted improved. Fortunately, because we wiped the silver host out so quickly, we're not really going to have, I don't think, too many control problems here. Because normally the problem is if you play, for example, Croc Guard, the silver host has so many turns to just build up their corruption and really ruin the situation. But and just make it like very difficult, but not like this. So they're actually offering me a trade agreement, which is pretty crazy. Again, they're making a lot more money out of this than I am because I don't really have the items. But I think that maybe the Tomb Kings I always kind of take it from the perspective of the vampire accounts, but honestly, they're not vampire accounts. These guys want a non-aggression pact. I'm actually going to decline because I'm probably going to war those guys shortly after wiping out the Silver Host. And you can't trade with orcs, so there's very little to gain from giving him a non-aggression pact. There's just very, very little to get. So yeah, you can see there's been some wars. And every little bit of trade that we get is going to be good nonetheless, just because, once again, we don't have to pay for troops. Just the fact that you don't have to pay for troops is a huge, huge, huge benefit. Though obviously you have to pay to... you have to pay for buildings, so those aren't cheap. Now I'm tempted to just get more archers, and I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to move down to here. The archers are actually surprisingly good against the early game vampire count units, because the vampire counts don't... Vampire counts in early game... We're just going to max out on archers. Well, so the thing is, the vampire counts in early game do not really have, and we'll max out here. Get Soul Reaper. I'm sorry, I'm a little scatterbrained right now, guys. I definitely apologize. But the early game vampire counts have very squishy infantry, so against them, these hordes of archers are actually super effective. And skeleton warriors, skeleton spears, and then Karn warriors are more than adequate to just hold the line for long enough. Rosetra has obviously not leveled up. You can see they haven't actually taken Doomglade yet, so honestly, I should easily be able to take Rosetra. And it doesn't even look like it's really gaining much corruption, which is pretty cool. We should be able to roll right through there. These guys are probably not doing... And the AI economy, I do believe, has been reworked. It was previously... previously, it was absolutely monstrous. It still is definitely pretty... not weak. This is on very hard difficulty right now that we're playing. So, I do believe it's on very hard difficulty. It should be. But, the AI definitely... Weirdly enough, the public order that's not public order that you normally get from very hard. Usually it's -8. So I'm not entirely sure what's up, if that's been changed. Haven't been doing much campaign, to be quite honest, and it's one of those things I don't usually pay too much attention to. But it's definitely a little different pilgrims. We got some canopic jars, which is pretty cool. And never mind. We get that if we take Rosetra, but we're definitely taking Rosetra. We're gonna push out to here, and we're gonna try to. Let's see. What is this? This is actually rather weak garrison. So if this guy, he's got a really weak force there. Now, granted, I don't have the strongest force either. You can see we're actually stabilizing. We're definitely starting to work things out here. And so. Got a trade agreement with them. We're on okay terms with the dinos, and as you can see, we're actually out-strengthening the dinos right now, which is pretty crazy, given that we do control a territory, but we don't have that much. We don't have that much going for us. Our army is right now pitiful. We can't even get. Honestly, I think that's what I might do. Actually, is I might get the Flock of Jaff to max out my army, because rather than getting an extra unit of archers in there. Obviously, I don't want to ditch my good infantry, or my good cavalry units. The chariots I think could be pretty useful, especially in early game against low-end troops. I think the undead chariots definitely have a place in quick match. I'm not convinced they have that much of a place in campaign, because honestly, very few, if any, chariots really have much of a place in campaign, and especially against factions. In later games, they're just not going to be that effective. You're much better off, I think, bringing cavalry, because cavalry is going to be much more flexible. Now, it's very tempting to actually go for Canopic Jar Hoarder. I think that's what but at the same time, I kind of want access to magic. So I think what we'll do is we'll get Shem's Burning Gaze. We only get a skeletal steed. I thought you can get a skeletal chariot for these guys as well, but apparently not. I thunk wrong. So we're going to besiege Rosetra. I'm not entirely sure how tough the garrison here is. You can see there's a whole bunch of sort of squishy troops there. And we'll just start building a ram. Maybe we'll just start building some siege towers. And we obviously don't have any units with siege attackers, so that's a little unfortunate. Marak has leveled up, but we're gonna make Lamia better, because that'll unlock 2 building slots rather than 1. And I don't really feel threatened at the moment, so we have very solid public order. So, and hopefully, I'm really hoping the vampires there sally out, because if they sally out, we will be able to easily squish them, I think, in equivalent combat. At this point, we do have those Nagakarn warriors. Their garrison includes units like zombies, a lot of zombies, as far as I was able to tell. So, the vampire garrison there is really bad, but it's technically favoring them. And AI often gets greedy and will just try to sally out and fight you. So, it's definitely one of those things I'm hoping happens. Otherwise, I'll have to just siege them and smoke them out that way. Khalida is not a pushover in close quarters, which is pretty awesome. It means I can use her to duel their lord. But they decided not to sally out, which sucks. So we're gonna have to wait and get our siege towers. And I'm not entirely sure how long I have to take, how much time I have to take Rosetta. We have a lot of archers too, which is going to be less than ideal, I think, when we're actually sieging. We can obviously shoot down the high priority units, whatever units there might be that are high priority. Not many, but as you can see, most of this is zombies, and the zombies are very, very weak. We're still leveling up Lamia. And yeah, I think basically there's very little for us to do. You can see we do have a little bit of income going, which is very nice. I suppose the income buildings are pretty good if you just for the cash. It's gonna be useful. You can see the income generated is nothing impressive, but it's all going towards buildings. One of the things that I could definitely see being useful is definitely trying to. I'm not entirely sure why they don't sally out. I kind of wish I really wish they would. It's just gonna be a horde of zombies to chew through though, so it should be okay. Especially the cavalry should be able to just plow through it, easy peasy. I'm not entirely sure how the Rosetta fortifications are set up either, because I haven't really. I think I've never actually played that siege out, because I always play when I'm playing as Lizardmen. And even in fact, even when I'm playing as Skaven, my army is usually too powerful or really powerful, and there's usually no army in Rosetta. So he's offering me money, and that's actually a lot of money. I found that. Actually, that was fairly tempting, especially given that I'm gonna have to fight for this whole province. I'm gonna have to control this whole province. You can see the Skaven are wandering around. It's a good chance that we got something down here, or they're occupying Doomglade. I'm not entirely sure why or which of the two is the case. But regardless, it's entirely possible that Krokar is not really doing his job of shutting them down. Nonetheless, I do think we should have our siege towers up and running now. So we're gonna go and fight this battle. And suffer some serious lag or problems. So, after what was a rather unsavory crash, we're going to try this again, and hopefully this time there will be no crash on the Siege of Rosetta. And hopefully this time we'll actually get a game. That was really, I'm not entirely sure what happened there. Somebody a battle, screen blacked out, and the game decided to crash. And I'm not entirely sure why. So, fortunately, the game does autosave every turn, so we haven't done very much in our turns. Just simply rolled back. But that was definitely not the most heartening of. That was definitely not the best of starts for the campaign. Starting out a campaign and suffering a crash within the first 15 turns is definitely not faith inspiring. And that's obviously I'm gonna keep playing. I love this game. I'm not gonna. It's not my intention to complain too much, but definitely this sort of crash is not fun, and definitely one of those things I don't enjoy dealing with, or don't think it. I think it's definitely a little bit of a problem. I don't know. Regardless, we do have a bit of a siege. So, interestingly enough, I'm not entirely sure why this is done so. You have a gate here and a gate there, and despite the fact that this is staggered out, usually in the old previously the maps, if it was staggered out like this, you'd have a slightly closer deployment zone here, but you don't. So that makes it a total no-brainer. On which gate we're going for? We're going to go for this gate over here. Let's admire these beautiful siege towers. Actually, this is pretty awesome. Oh my goodness, there's like an ugly-looking Tomb King in there. Crazy. This is actually really nice. There's some siege towers I find absolutely disgusting and looking atrocious, and there's some that look pretty awesome. And these are definitely some of those. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna deploy our archers in the back. We want to support our main force for the safety of the back, I suppose. It's a bit repetitive there. We'll put them in group 3. We'll put Khalida, Sepulchral Stalkers, and we need to make sure to put those on melee mode because we don't want them getting tied down. The Knights, and then Khalida and the Leech Priest all in group 1. Sepulchral Stalkers in group 1. Even these guys can be group 4. And the Chariots, we're going to send around the flank. They're going to be group 5. Now the Chariots, looking at them, their stats are really not particularly inspiring. They actually remind me a lot of Goblin Chariots with a somewhat better charge bonus and better weapon strength, but the rest of their stats are rather pitiful. So definitely not complaining. They're definitely decent. I forgot to hit gamble or to start battle or whatever, or start deployment first. Generally my rule for gambling is only if the wins of magic are below 10, because at that point it really doesn't matter. You can't get much worse. So without further ado, we are going to push forward. You can see I'm throwing my chariots straight into the fray. You can see these skeleton spears actually in such a position that they're not capping either of the two towers. We'll definitely take some hurt on the Tomb King towers. Oh, that was another actually change made in this patch, was that the fact that and I forgot to mention this, but that was another change made, was that the towers now fire faster. Now, unfortunately, you can see here, the Necropolis Knights actually took a big beating. Their HP pool is good, but they're very slow. They only have 66 speed, and they just didn't do very well at it. But you can see between them and the Sepulchral Stalkers and now Khalida, they're going to shred through this gate rather quickly and bring it down in a matter of seconds. We're going to apply the chariots onto the other flank. We're going to try to work on the gatehouse. It's going to take a while. If we take enough losses, it's going to be great for us, actually, because then, once we take enough losses, we can kick in a free unit of a Shopti, which would be incredibly useful. Now we're going to have our archers start opening fire on these skeleton spears. We'll keep pushing our skeletons forward. And you can see that definitely there's quite a bit of withering fire going on, and we'll definitely be in a solid position. We obviously don't want to waste our arrows on the zombies if we can avoid it. You can see we've managed to breach the gate, and now we can kind of just push through and do some good work here. Now, unfortunately, of course, I can try to use Shem's Burning Gaze. It's not too likely to do an amazing job here. It actually seems to have hurt our own guys, which is rather bad. And we're going to get in here, though, and start working. In the meantime, up on the wall, you can see we have gotten quite a bit of work. We've got quite a bit of damage going down with the Necron warriors on the field, and of course, once they clear the walls out for us, we will be in a golden position. Really, we're gonna have these guys start climbing the wall. We'll have these archers open fire on these skeleton spears, and we'll have our skeleton warriors follow up the main push. Here in the heart of things, you can see Khalida and her legion of Sepulchral Stalkers and Necropolis Knights and all them are in the heart of things. Khalida herself is in here, though I'm not entirely sure how much she can do, really. This is a vastly suboptimal fight for her. She's really not oriented against these sorts of units. What we need to do is we really need to clear out this wall, get the Necron warriors wiping out these spears and the zombies, and climb down and get. I'm gonna start flanking, because they will definitely be able to do much better against the low ground troops here than Khalida and the rest of her goon squad here. What we're going to do, we're going to try to get a cast. Like, we might as well try to get some damage going in with the Shem's Burning Gaze, but it's doing very little. It's really not meant for these sorts of situations. Over here, you can see the chariots are actually doing an okay job. And the archers are doing some work. We're able to push forward a little bit. And you can see we're losing models here and there, but it's really not the end of the world. And it's, in general, okay. And with all these zombies kind of bogged down here by the skeleton warriors and the Neckarn Warriors. Neckarn Warriors are actually quite a boost, which I did not expect, but they're qualitative breath of fresh air. They're definitely better. Keep in mind, the Skeleton Warriors are also applying poison, which is helping them tank out here. We're gonna have to pull back the Necropolis Knights and try to get them out of here, as well as probably Queen Khalida, because they're definitely getting owned. You can see the invocation of Neck going down there. We're gonna push the Skeleton Warriors into the fray, and we're definitely trying to get our archers around the sides. Unfortunately, you can see we do get a breach here, which is great, but I don't really feel that I have the potential to push through there. So we're going to pull back a little bit and leave the situation the way it is. I apologize there. You can see the skeleton spears here are slowly but surely falling apart. You can see Queen Khalida still in the heart of things. And we really need to get her kind of tied down in the middle of the blob like this. And that's when we really want to pop that poison explosion. It's not going to do a huge amount of work, but it'll do more damage that way than if it was, if the angle was different. Is really what it comes down to. And we're gonna redeploy our troops in here. We're gonna get them back into the fight, just trying to keep applying that pressure. And obviously, we are slowly but surely just hacking and slashing our way up, down, across this wall, destroying these skeleton spears. Obviously, it's not going super fast, but it's happening slowly but surely. We don't really want to waste arrows on the zombies if we can avoid it. So we're gonna try to fire down on these skeleton spears and whittle them down for the cause. Over here, obviously, we're taking the flank penalty, but at the moment these skeleton spears go down, we're going to be able to reposition and engage these zombies. And of course, our troops are unbreakable, so that's a huge benefit for us. It means that despite all the disadvantages or whatever, or all the problems we're suffering, they will stick around and fight to the bitter end there. You can see the archers there doing some major work, just checking through the badly shielded skeleton spears. And now, really, the AI's made a bit of a mistake here. I'm going to be able to plow straight through. These are skeleton warriors, so they're not very much of a threat. And what we're going to do is we're going to push our chariots right through these zombies here, and then keep going. Soon we will get a casting of our realm of soul. Actually, it's not even that soon. We're going to get our chariots. We're going to force path them through, and we're going to push straight into the skeleton warriors in the back. Of course, zombies are not going to be too great at shutting these guys down. Here in the pits, you can see definitely the Necropolis Knights are not really intended for this situation. The Sepulchral Stalkers seem to be performing better in these sorts of rough situations than some of the other units, but still not ideal either way. Definitely a banishment would be incredibly useful here. I don't think that can be denied. That banishment would be immensely helpful. But as you can see, we're definitely able to break some of these units, and we're going to be able to push through. Keep going with our chariots. And obviously, chariots aren't really intended for this sort of stuff, but it's definitely something they can do potentially. We'll get our soldiers up there. You can see over here these troops are collapsing. We definitely should pull back the Necropolis Knights once again, as well as the Sepulchral Stalkers. Queen Khalida's tanking it out really well, as is the Cactef, the Lich Priest there. We're going to swing around and hit these zombies in the rear. The chariots are very squishy. 9 models, very low armor as we discussed. We're just trying to get our archers into position, have them start shooting. We'll get our Necropolis Knights shifted and have them swing out to here. We'll put them in a control group 6. Or you can see the chariots are just going to hit these zombies from behind, and then keep pushing through and go after those zombies over there. I do believe my opponent has a lord somewhere. I'm not entirely sure where that guy is, though. I haven't really... Oh, he's still camping out in the center with his bats. And for some reason, the Sepulchral Stalkers decided that the best way to go is through the heart of the battle. And I'm not entirely sure why they did that. Regardless, we definitely need to kind of keep pushing through and get these chariots out of dodge, because that's a really rough spot to be in. Where you can see the skeleton spears are slowly but surely getting whittled down. Queen Khalida should be in here somewhere. You can see these guys are finally falling apart. And really, we'll be in a good spot. The chariots definitely need to pull through and just get out of dodge if at all possible. Zombies, while definitely not super effective against them, will do some damage. Over here you can see the spearmen are getting kind of annihilated by the hail of arrows. I'm not even bothering aiming the arrows or telling them exactly what to shoot at. They have a lot of ammo still, and just the disruption and the damage they're doing there will be hugely effective. And yeah, things are going peachy keen. We're going to wipe out what we can. All that's left at this point are those bats on the cap. And I do believe a unit of direwolves up on the high ground, which is an interesting spot. This is definitely a very cool map. I can imagine this being a rather challenging map in a quick match, or not in a quick match, but in a head-to-head situation. Here, obviously not so much the case. You can see we're going to annihilate these zombies through sheer grumbling. as well as these spears. I basically might as well stop firing. Um, we're going to actually just charge and go for melee, so it's to conserve arrows. Over here you can see we're slowly but surely whittling away at our opponent. We're going to pull these Nakaran warriors off the line and swing around. Once again, I'm not entirely sure where my opponent's lord is. Is he still camping here on the... He is. It's a vampire count lord. There's a vampire lord too. Vampire count lord. Of course he's a vampire count lord, but he's a vampire as well. I definitely don't want to lose any more of these guys. They've already bled a lot, and it's best if we avoid that. Over here you can see these spearmen are falling apart, so we're going to be able to get our archers into the back line. My opponent's force is definitely not having the best time of it. Where these skeleton spears not having a good time, but we can get our Nekakarn warriors into the direwolves. And slowly but surely, we're approaching the second tier of the Realm of Souls. That's definitely one of the weaknesses of the Tomb Kings, is they have no source of healing. Unlike vampire counts, who obviously have access to Invocation of Nehek, it's one of the biggest gimmicks in their entire roster and their entire magic selection is Invocation of Nehek. And Tomb Kings have no equivalent. Granted, they do have this healing ability, but it's not comparable at all. It's cool, obviously it's useful to have. It's better than not having it, but it's not that good of a... Not really that good. As you can see, all that's left is at this point that really their lord. We're slowly but surely we're going to shoo away these zombies. The zombies take forever to kill, especially because our troops are not particularly good themselves. I'm probably not committing my best troops to this either because there are probably skeleton warriors in there. Unfortunately, you can see the direwolves actually tanking it out. Once again, these guys are not large, so the skeleton spears have terrible melee attack, even though it's 19 here. Still pitiful against these guys. Queen Khalida does, I believe, have some sort of buff, so maybe she needs to get that unlocked. No, she does. She has I will be done. And so she's getting all these buffs. It's definitely very useful. Or you can see my archers are starting to line up. They do have a good amount of ammo. These spears are going to crumble. They're down to that last handful of HP. And my opponent has no way of, or the AI has no real way of keeping them alive. 3 miles, 2, 1, and they're going to fall apart. Which is going to leave my opponent on no troops whatsoever. So we're going to start rallying around over here. And we're going to push our archers forward and start engaging on these fellbats. Because if we can wipe out the fellbats, really my opponent's lord should basically crumble at that point. This is literally all that's left. Things are definitely going a little slow, so we're going to throw things into fast forward here because I don't feel like wasting too much time. Obviously we're getting pushed into a little bit here. And the skeletons are so bad at shooting shooting the bats in time that they actually managed to get a bit of a connection there. It's okay. Tear the bats through when they try to land on the ground. Obviously chariots have a bonus against infantry, which is actually going to apply to the bats. I'm not sure how much of a bonus that is. 12 bonus actually, that's pretty huge, especially when you're dealing with units with such crazy high melee defense like the vampire bats, like the fell bats. Where you can see these fell bats are definitely tanking out. But once again, the archers, because some of the archers are going to get shots in, they're going to annihilate them fairly quickly. Down here you can see these guys are disintegrating, they're losing their leadership. Ewald himself is going to start falling apart. I'll be able to push Khalida into him, and that's going to be game. He should start disintegrating in a second. You can see these guys are wavering though, they're definitely very low. Fortunately I didn't quite get another proc of Realm of Souls, and I wasn't actually that close. This is definitely a little misleading because there's probably about a few millimeters worth of space there. So a decisive victory, which was pretty clear that that was going to be the case. Though definitely the power bar did not indicate that. The chariots did immense work. I think the chariots are really powerful in these early game situations. Thinking about it more and more, simple fact of the matter is that the vampire counts in early game have an army that's entirely composed of squishy small unit model units. So against them, chariots are brutally effective. None of them have good armor. That bonus against infantry applies to everything, including direwolves and fellbats, for both melee attack as well as damage. So and of course these guys don't have particularly great HP per model. They don't have particularly, and if they do have good melee defense, as in the case of the fellbats, that melee attack and the charge bonus will both combine to just negate that completely. And so they're just really very favorably set up to fight this. I didn't really think about this before. I've never been the biggest fan of chariots, and it's probably because usually when I play a chariot faction, by the time you really built up the chariots are usually higher tier units, and by the time you build up to them, there's usually better options. Usually heavy cavalry is better because it's more flexible. whether that be the case of Chaos or the case of Beastmen or Norska or whatever it might be. With Norska, you're better off bringing Skin Wolves, obviously. In the case of Dark Elves, you're better off bringing in Dread Knights, in my opinion. And so I think that's really kind of the case there. But here, I think there's definitely a place for the Chariots just because they're available immediately or almost immediately. Tier 1 is basically immediately. So very powerful. And yeah, with this turn, we're definitely we're gonna hit the end here. You can see Khalida, absolute beast, tearing through zombies and skeletons. What lord isn't? Still not quite up there with what Durthu can do against Bretonnian peasants, but very, very impressive. You can see the, of course, the Nehkarn warriors are just vastly outclassed the garbage infantry that Vampire Counts put on the field. The archers still doing good work. You can see even the spears and skeleton warriors doing some okay work. The biggest let down here was definitely the Necropolis Knights and the Sepulchral Stalkers. That's not to say they didn't get a lot of kills or they didn't get a decent amount of kills, but they just were not able to put out the performance necessary. And we're getting another bit of a lag spike here. I'm not entirely sure what is, if there's been some optimization issues or something like that. Definitely one of those problems, but it's okay. Nonetheless. We have gained a bunch of chevrons. Obviously, we're not going to keep a lot of these units. And what we're going to do here is, I think we're simply going to occupy. Actually, we will sack because I really need cash. And then we'll immediately occupy it there. That's definitely one of those gimmicks you can do. If you're not, obviously it's very nice. If you're going for Canopic Charge, then you want to go for Canopic Charge. But if you're not, then you might as well sack beforehand just to get money. You can see we've destroyed the Silver Host, so now we're really kind of set for the future. We're in a pretty good spot. We can definitely destroy this building here because we're not going to be building any more skeleton archers for a while. Yeah, so I'm going to be pausing here for the video so it's not running too long. I don't want to be making it too much. It's already definitely been a somewhat long video with all these battles and whatnot, but definitely try not to make it overly long. But we'll pick up here. You can see we've getting some fancy stuff, and I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. I do hope you're enjoying Tomb Kings. If you guys would like me to do some videos showing some of the other lords, I can definitely do that. I know Queen Khalida has been one of the more popular and common lords to see. I know Ark in the Black is not as common, and I assume Ketep isn't as common either. Perhaps a Vortex campaign with some of them. I can definitely do that, and I'm definitely willing to do that if that is what people are interested in. Yeah, so let me know what you think, guys. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching. I do hope you enjoyed, and leave your comments below, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.